So the New York Times printed this headline the other day. It read, "Can my children be friends with white people?" Talking about black children. And a lot of people were in outrage over this. A lot of people thought that this headline was racist. I asked that, what if the headlines were in reverse? What would people think? And so I printed out a fake headline that is in reverse that reads, "Can my children be friends with black people?" And I put Breitbart News at the top. Let's see what people think. And have you ever heard of a company called Breitbart News?
Yes.
They're like a conservative news station.
Definitely.
So they printed this headline, "Can my children be friends with black people?" Is that racist?
Can my children be friends with black people?
Can my children be friends with black people? Talking about their white children.
I mean, it sounds racist. Like, it totally sounds racist.
Can my children be friends with black people? Now, if someone asked you that, do you think that that would be a racist question?
Yeah.
Can my children be friends with black people? Talking about their white kids. Does that sound racist to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Breitbart News?
No.
Okay. So they printed an article recently asking the question, "Can my children be friends with black people?" Talking about their white kids.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Does that question sound racist to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It brings a racist,
Color of the
to it.
skin, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can my children be friends with black people? Is that headline racist?
Yes, definitely. That definitely would.
Can my children be friends with black people? Talking about their white kids. Does that sound racist to you?
Yes. Yeah.
What if I told you this headline was fake? And
I believe it. I'd believe it.
and that this is actually the real headlines by the New York Times, except in reverse.
Okay.
Can my children be friends with white people? Does that still sound racist?
So, I kind of see why there can be more of a barrier in the way for black people than for white people. And the reason why is because I think, the history of this country, right? It's our original sin is slavery.
Now, what if I told you this headline was fake, and the actual headline was by the New York Times, who printed the exact same thing but in reverse? Would it still be racist?
Still be racist.
And the real headline was by the New York Times, which we've all heard of, who asked the same question but in reverse. Is that question still racist?
No, I think that's sad.
Yeah, but there isn't so many years of oppression against white people there is against black people, so it's a...
Okay, what if I told you that this headline was fake, and the actual headline was by the New York Times, except in reverse? Can my children be friends with white people? Talking about black kids. Is it still racist?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
From a black perspective or a white perspective, whoever asks, it's a racist question either way.
What if I told you this headline was fake, and that this is actually the real headline printed by the New York Times in reverse? Can my children be friends with white people? Is that still racist?
Not necessarily anymore, because the U.S. is, they're all white people. Racism never existed with white people necessarily, like in the U.S. with like slavery and everything. So I would definitely say that's not considered racist.
And this is the actual headline by the New York Times, except in reverse. Is it still racist?
Yeah.
Yes.
So pretty interesting. So all of the black Americans that I interviewed said without a shadow of a doubt, without thinking about it, that either way, the headline of that article would be racist. It was only the white Americans, the white liberals, that have some sort of mythical white guilt embedded into them, where they think it would be racist one way, but not racist the other way. This goes back to all the people that we interviewed about the Confederate monuments. Most of the black Americans that we interviewed about the monuments didn't even care that they were there. A lot of them said that they didn't even notice they were there. They didn't pay attention to them. It was only the white liberals that actually think that people think about these things on a daily basis, 24 hours a day. The question remains that if there was a conservative media outlet as large as the New York Times, as most widely known as the New York Times, and they did print the headline in reverse, I'm sure we would see much more outrage. Can my children be friends with black people? Does that question sound racist, though?
No, of course not.
Wait, it doesn't sound racist,
No,
that question?
I don't think so. I think it's fine.
Can my children be friends with black people? You don't think that would be a racist question?
No, sir.